Right. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good to see you all here. Karibuni sana. Welcome to another Afriforex daily analysis session. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. For the sake of guys who are new here, welcome. Of course, we do this each and every morning from 9 a.m. in the morning. So feel free to join us with the same link that you did use to join us here. Of course, that goes out to all the guys who are joining us here on Zoom. For the guys joining us on YouTube, also feel free to tune in as well. And also remember to like and subscribe. It does end up helping our channel as well. So we're here with Mitch. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you. But we do always prefer that you ask your questions in the Q&A section, so at least I can also end up having a chance to look at them towards the very end of this session. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list, comparing what we have today in comparison to what we did end up having yesterday. And you can see the watch list right there on your screens. So today, the 17th of September, 2024, can see that we do have the euro and the Canadian dollar abandoned on the sell side. So we'll be trying to mix and match that up. Can see the only change that's been there is the USD going to the buy side. But remember that yesterday there were also some Swiss franc fundamentals that did come out after we were done with the session. So the Swiss franc also did end up switching. Fundamentally, we're not really backed in terms of looking for the selling opportunities. So that did switch and it does remain moving into today. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc pairs that we had early in the morning. So this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. We're ideally looking for selling opportunities. Can't really see the three areas that I had pointed out, but unfortunately, once the fundamentals did end up switching on this one, then it meant that looking for the sells was not really the best of ideas. And you can see that the market did actually pull to the upside. So unfortunately, not a currency pair that we'll be watching out for. The New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. Remember, we had also discussed this one yesterday morning, but once the fundamentals did switch, then ideally we're not fundamentally backed. And you can see that the market did actually end up becoming stagnant somewhere within this region today. A bit of action coming in, maybe some strength that could be coming in on the CHF pairs. Maybe could be something that we will end up seeing, but unfortunately not a currency pair that will be trying to see whether we can get any trades. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. In as much as the buys did actually end up working, technically speaking, of course, once the bars showed up within here, bounced off this region and continued to move to the upside, but you can see how much they really struggled. And of course, that definitely means that, it shows that the fundamental backing was not really there. So this one was a bit of a struggle getting to the top, but not really a currency pair. We'll be trying to see whether we can get any trades. And on the last CHF pairs that we're watching out for yesterday, that fell off our watch list was the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. The market was pretty much stagnant within this region, and you can really see the buyers really struggle to lift. And once again, of course, it goes down and boils down to not having much fundamental backing. So moving on into some of the USDs that we had yesterday. So we had this one. This is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here, and we're expecting, hopefully, to get the market maybe just tapping back in within this region to get some proper sells, at least some sort of a pullback. After the market broke this region to the downside, we're expecting maybe some sort of a pullback coming in within there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. You can see that the market rallied down, but still came back in within this region. But you can see that the sellers really ran out of steam. If you compare the next time, them coming down here compared to the previous time, this leg right here, you can see that there was some sort of weakness that came in. And after that, you can really see that the buyers really pushed to the upside. There was nothing there. Market came back in within this region. This was earlier today, during the Asian session, and you will see something similar with most of the yen pairs. I mean, even when we looked at the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen, you can see that spike that happened earlier, and the yens tend to move together most of the time. So possibly we could see some strength coming in on the yens. So for this one, not a currency pair, we'll be trying to see whether we can get trades. Reason being, we could find ourselves stuck within this region because there is a high probability that the US dollar could also be fighting. So we want something that's going to be moving. We don't really be stuck between two levels. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere here. I pointed out that we did need to see the market break to the upside. On the pullback, we could look for the buys. Consider the market pulled back in within here, but just couldn't break free of this region right here. I mean, even if I were to put an SNR there, you can see that the buyers really struggled, to break this area to the upside. So you can see that even moving into today, we're still stuck within there. So you could find that the market could continue to fool around within that region. So we will be walking away from that. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that hopefully we could have gotten some sort of a pullback coming back in within here for us to look for the buys, but it seems that the market broke above this region to the upside, pulled back in here. Fortunately, we couldn't get the deep pullback coming in till within that region there, but you can see that the market generally continued to move to the upside. It could have been a bit hard to grab the buys because the pullbacks were not, let me just say, they were very shallow. It's not something that you could read properly on the 15-minute time frame. But nonetheless, the market did continue to move up. And maybe you could find the market continuing to move to the upside, although considering the fact that the USDs have switched, there's a bit of caution because the most recent fundamentals for the USD are dictating that maybe we could find some strength coming in on the USD. Whether that strength is going to come in during the London session or maybe during the US session, we don't know. But there are indications telling us that maybe we could find some strength coming in. So that's a reason why we don't really want to end up jumping in terms of looking for selling opportunities for the USD. So last but not least, we do have the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what I was expecting before I do end up executing some buys. So the market was somewhere within this region. I did point out that don't look for the buys because there was this region right here that we didn't know how the market was going to react. But you can see that the market broke to the upside, pulled back in within here. You can see that this was during the New York Stock Exchange session, and the market did bounce off to the upside, not really the most aggressive of pushes to the upside. And you can see that the market somewhere within here held hostage. Right now, the buyers look like they're attempting to come in. Could be something to do with the Frankfurt session. But we'll just keep our eyes on the ball. As far as we know, there could be strength coming in on the USD. So we'll be waiting to see whether that does end up happening. So for that reason, not really a kind spread that we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. But of course, if you do have any buys, I mean, from yesterday, that you're holding on to, then you could hold on to them. I mean, for as long as you've managed your trades, maybe technically speaking, maybe the markets could continue to move to the upside. But in terms of looking for further entries, if you are to listen to my advice and my 2 cents, I'd tell you to possibly not end up looking for more opportunities there, possibly elsewhere. So shifting gears to a screenshot that we did end up getting. So we only got one from Bravin. People seem to be very stingy with screenshots nowadays, but it's okay. So this one is from Bravin. So you got a selling opportunity on silver, which was good. Good to see that you got a sell somewhere within this region right here. The market came to the downside. I can see that your stop loss is already at break even, which is good, and you're targeting down here, which was quite ambitious, especially considering the fact that the market was still moving to the upside. But nonetheless, in terms of where you got the entry, definitely some sellers high up within that region there. Hopefully you did end up managing your trade within this area because it looks like the buyers who are pushing up are sitting somewhere within this area right here. But nonetheless, this is okay. This is good trading, not bad. And of course, Bravin, of course, you being a one-on-one student, I definitely know that you do know what you're doing on the chart. So that's some really good trading. So shout out to you for that, Bravin. And of course, do keep up sending in those screenshots. Of course, remember, guys, you also can send in your screenshots. It's not a competition. And maybe, I think maybe towards the end of the year, you might actually end up rewarding guys based on, the most improved, based on what we see here. So feel free to send in your screenshots. Feel free to interact with us. And also, contact details are there. You can end up reaching out to us via WhatsApp as well if you're having any trouble in terms of your trading, and we will see how best we can end up helping you. Remember, we are a resource. We're doing this. We're not charging anyone anything. We're just doing this for the love of the game, just to see people improve. We're really happy when we see people improve. And that's the reason why we do this, because, we do this as if it's a calling. We do it with a lot of passion. So make sure that you do use us, to the best of your ability. Since we're here, use us as a resource. We may not be here forever, but at least for the time that we're here, make sure that you do make the most use out of us. So our contact details are there on the chat box. Feel free to reach out to us. And I guess that's pretty much it in terms of that session. So shifting gears now again to matters today. You can see the watch list right there. So the 17th of September, the good year of our Lord 2024. For the guys who've come in late, this is what the watch list is going to be looking like. And we're going to be mixing and matching up the euro versus everything on the buy side in terms of the currency pairs, the Canadian dollar, as well, with everything on the buy side as well. So feel free to take note of that. In terms of the fundamentals, there's already been some yen that has come out. This was earlier on at around 730. So we will see whether we will get that strength coming in for the yen. You can also see some USD news events, the ones that I was talking about. So you can see that the numbers were negative last time. This time around, extremely positive. So we'll be waiting to see whether we will be getting that strength coming in. Looking forward, you can see that there are quite a number of Euro news events that are going to be coming out at around 12. So we will see what happens, especially moving into the US session, whether we'll get, some activity happening on the Euros. And also you can see a bunch of USD news events and also CAD news events. So I guess it's going to be pretty lit during the US session. But of course, in case anything does change, we will definitely let you know on the Telegram channel. So feel free to join. And of course, in case there's any update, we'll definitely let you know. So we'll start off with the euro pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this area right here. And you can see that I did point out that hopefully if the market did come back in within here and we did see something, could have looked for the sells, or if the market pulled back in within this region right here and we did get something, could have looked for the sells. Unfortunately, there was nothing really to tell us, that we should be getting ready to look for ourselves. You can see that the buyers came up, sellers didn't show up, they were nowhere to be seen. And you can see that the buyers came up quite aggressive within this region right here, and the sellers really struggled to retaliate. You can see that the market came in all the way till the top within this region right here, something similar with what we've seen with the rest of the yen pairs. So let's hope that maybe since this move did end up happening, maybe some sort of a sign to tell us that the big boys could be starting to jump in to the market. So we will be waiting to see what happens. Of course, right now, based on where the price is, not a really good area in terms of looking for the sells, especially considering the fact that price is just holding above here. You could find that during the London session, the market could easily bounce off here to the upside, and you could find price back in within this area once again, maybe at around 430. So we just need to be patient. So it's either one of two things. Either the market breaks to the downside and holds beneath here. You can see that the market has already probed within that area, but unfortunately it's holding above. So based on that fact, there's no trade. And of course, when we get the sells, or if we do get the sells somewhere within that region, then definitely you will need to watch out for here. So just slightly move this level higher up, just adjusting it based on what the story is telling us. So this is the area that we should be watching out for. In case the market does end up coming up a bit higher, let's say if it does bounce off this region to the upside during the London session, then we'll be waiting to see whether, hopefully, if the sellers do need better prices than this, we could find the market spiking above here to the upside. But if it does come back into the downside, then I guess we should be good to go. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But remember the red SNR at the top, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities, or the last ditch selling opportunities. So moving on into the next one, the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells, and you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and an illustration of what to expect. The market had probed, and I did point out that hopefully if the market does come back in within here, you could look for sells, and had illustrated that. But of course, we're expecting price to come down, maybe lower. But unfortunately, it's like the sellers were just not there. You can see that the market just came back in within this region, tempted to come back up, but more or less in some sort of a range, sellers holding at the top, somewhere within this region still holding. So there's a possibility we could find the market spiking again. Reason being, if you look at the fact that, the price has not really moved off this region right here, it means that this prices within this area are not good enough for the sellers. So there's a possibility we could spike above here. But regardless, even if the market does end up spiking, we still need to see it come back into the downside. You could look for aggressive sells higher up within this region, but you run the risk basically of, you could easily end up still getting held to the upside of this region. So that's why it might be safer for you to look for the sells much, much lower, unless you're a real cowboy on the charts and you love taking risks, then you could possibly end up getting the sales higher up, of course, keeping stops higher up, higher than that, because in case the market does actually breach above this region to the upside and start to move higher than that, even if you end up having your stop losses higher than that, you're basically holding on to an unnecessary loss. So you're better off scratching that trade and possibly looking for opportunities elsewhere. So the levels are the same for this one. The plan and the game plan is still the same, but like I pointed out, there's a probability we could get a spike happening on that one. So also just be aware of that. So the next one, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere here. So I had pointed out maybe we could find the market coming back in somewhere within here, but you can see that there was an SNR somewhere within this region right here that was good enough for the sellers. The market came in within there, and you can see that the sellers came down. I mean, even if you missed the sell higher up there or somewhere within there, you can see that the market broke to the downside, came back in and actually held within here. If you looked for the sells here, consider those sales did actually end up working, and I had illustrated that as well. The market coming down off this region to the downside. But unfortunately, the only tricky part about this trade was the fact that it wasn't within the times that we keep on pointing out. I know that we always point out 10, 3, and 4:30. This one was a bit off in terms of when the market did actually end up moving. But it's still within the London session. I mean, considering both the euro and the Great British Pound, you will expect that they're most active, during the London session. So it's not really uncommon. It's just moved a bit off the times. So by the time you come to the charts at around 3, price was already down within here. Hopefully, had it held within this region right here at around 3, then it would have been good. So I was also timing this one, but unfortunately it did leave. By the time I came to the charts, price was somewhere within here. So it's okay. Today is another day. So the levels are the same for this one. The game plan is the same. The only thing you need to be aware of is that right now we're down within some sort of a buyer's region. So don't look for the sells now. Let's see if we can get the market breaching beneath this region to the downside. If we get the market breaking, and even if it does break and you're not in on that move, when the market is breaking to the downside, it should be fine. You don't really need to chase. Just wait for the market to come back in. You could find the retest coming back in within there. Maybe it might even come back in within these levels, after it breaks, even if it doesn't come all the way till, the top. But at least you still could get the trade, on the pullback. Don't attempt and be big boy, attempting to break this region to the downside. Let the big boys do the hard job of breaking the level. Then we will end up following after. If you do end up, attempting that or taking that type of approach in your trading, then you will find that you're giving yourself the soft life, as far as trading is going. So also wait to see what happens. Of course, right now, considering the fact that we're down within a buyer's region, we don't know whether the buyers can react out of there. There's no need of trying to be a prophet. Let's wait and see what happens. You could easily find the market coming back in somewhere within this region here, but there's also a level here, minus another, the market did actually break. So if we find that the buyers are coming up and they're running out of steam within this area, and we see signs that the sellers are coming in, we could look for the sells within here. The only tricky thing about the euro against the Great British Pound is that, the pip value is so high. So the pips end up being very small. You can see like coming down, this is only 7 pips, going all the way till the top there. And as much as it seems like the levels are so far apart, this is not really that much. We're only looking at around 22 pips. So it's a very tricky balance in terms of getting, some proper risk to reward and based on the pips that you have. Sometimes you see setups, but because the pips sometimes end up being very small, especially on Euro GBP and quite a number of the CHFs, it's usually a very tricky balance in terms of getting some proper risk to reward. But of course, if you can end up jumping in on the setup, if it gives you a 1:1 and that's good enough for you, then you can definitely jump in on it. For some of us, 1:1 is nothing. So we definitely want 1:3s, going up, something that's going to give us a proper risk to reward. But of course, if it tickles your fancy, then you definitely can't jump in on it. So the next one, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can't see the three regions right here that I had pointed out. So one was higher up within that area right there. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere here. I did point out that if the market comes in within here, we could look for the sells. The turnaround was quite fast. And unfortunately, price couldn't get all the way to within that region. And you can see that for pretty much the whole of yesterday, the market was more or less holding within this area right here. So today we have adjusted the areas and made them a bit more tighter, based on what the story of price is telling us, because we still could have the level at the top, but based on the intraday moves that, we do expect to happen, maybe there is a large, probability that market might not actually end up going all the way to the top. So these are the three areas for today. So we've made them a bit tighter. So for as long as we're holding beneath here, we're still good to go in terms of sales. But in case the market does end up turning around and in the unfortunate turn of events, we get the market breaking above this region to the upside and holding above it, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So this is also an area of interest. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts with the team, price was somewhere within this region right here, coming up. Right now, the sellers have showed up, which is okay, but don't chase. There's still a possibility you could get the market coming back in within this region right here. Remember, you want to get your sells as close as possible within here. Because even if you get the sells now, your stops will still have to be somewhere within here, which means that if you get the sell now, in as much as you can't hide your stop loss somewhere all the way high up within there, remember that the problem area down here still remains. If you look at that risk to reward, it's not really the best. So if you end up getting the trade much higher up, same parameters in terms of the stop loss and the take profit, but getting the trade higher up, you can see that the risk to reward starts to increase, because in any case, if you're going to be looking for the sells within here, there's no point hiding your stop loss all the way high up there, because if the market breaks and holds above here and starts to move to the upside, high chances it's going to come in within here. So there's no point of you hanging on and actually waiting for the market to actually come and stop you out. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But somewhere within this region here, I think if we get some sort of a pullback coming in within there, you could possibly end up looking for the sells. And you can see that that risk to reward is not too bad, at least as far away as possible within here and as close as possible within that region right there. So let's see what happens on this one. Of course, if the market breaks and holds beneath here, definitely can look for those more conservative selling opportunities. But of course, if you get some, if you get, some earlier selling opportunities, you just need to make sure that you do manage them so that you also don't end up exposing yourself to too much risk. So the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some sells as well. So these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for. So hopefully you can take note of them. So right now you can see that the market has come to the downside, which is good. Don't look for the sells now. There's a minor scenario within this region here. You can see that the market has been in some sort of a range, choppy mess. If you were to just temporarily add some levels within there, you can see that the market is in some sort of a range within here. So looking for the sells here might not really be the best. Let these bars push the market back up to the upside. Let's see if we can get the sells somewhere as close as possible within here. Of course, you can look for the sells here, but this is a more, let me say it's a major level, because if you look at it on the 1 hour time frame, you'll see that the market seems to be holding more within this region right here. So this one is also not too off, but ideally the main, or what we'd call true scenario, somewhere within here. So you could find that for as long as we get the market coming back in within that region, then we should be good to go. So let's see what happens. If the market, or if the buyers can actually push the market to the upside. It seems like they're starting to come in, which is good. And hopefully if we get the market slowing down within this area right here, then we definitely could see, we could get some sells to possibly end up coming down. Maybe even coming down to challenge, these buyers down within this region right here. So make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember the region a bit higher. Of course, if the sellers are not interested with these prices within here and they need a much higher price, then at least we'll be waiting to see what happens somewhere within this region right here. You can see that the sellers have reacted off there before, so they can't end up doing that again. So in case they need that price, at least we'll be ready for that. But also remembering that is going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get aggressive selling opportunities. So last but not least, for the euros, we have the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, this is also a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be trying to see whether we can get sells. So those are the three levels. The three areas that we'll be trying to see whether we can get sells. Right now, the market is coming back in within a seller's region, which is good. In terms of location, perfect. But in terms of looking for the trade, not yet, because we still could find that the market could break to the upside of this area. Considering the fact that the sellers have not really showed up, within this area, we look at how the buyer pushed up within that area and what the sellers have been doing. We can't really say that the sellers are yet in the game. So there's a possibility for them to really be incited and come in. Could find the market might need to go to the upside. If we get an aggressive push of the seller, pushing the market to the downside, this area right here, then I guess that could be the signal. And of course, we need to see the struggle after that before we actually do look for the selling opportunities within that region. But also remember, if the market breaks and holds above here, then unfortunately at that point in time, especially if the market really struggles to come back to the downside of this area, considering the fact that this is the high of yesterday, if the market breaks above that region, then there's a possibility you could find that maybe the market might need to go up a bit much higher. And I mean, at that point in time, if you're looking for the sells, then you could be easily encountering a number of losses. So there's really no point fighting with the market at that point in time. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But let's see what happens. Definitely some sellers are sitting here. That one we know for a fact, especially considering the fact that the market has come in within that region and it's holding. The reason why it's holding within this area is because there's a fight that's happening between the buyers and the sellers. So we already have a clue that there are already some sellers who are sitting there. In terms of them being the big sellers, that's what we're yet to find out. And if they're interested in these prices, we're also waiting to see whether that's going to happen. So make sure that you watch out for that. Maybe you could find the strength coming in on the USD, maybe during the US session. We'll just have to wait and see, who knows. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euros. So right now we're going to move on to the Canadian dollar pairs, and we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. You want to see the price come back in within that region to time some sells, and you can see that the market came down, then pushed to the upside. You can see that the market really struggled to come to the downside before the buyers did really show up. Unfortunately, there wasn't really much in terms of anything telling us to look for sells on this one, but it's also something similar to what we've seen even on the rest of the yen pairs, where you can see that push coming to the upside, the market coming up for pretty much the whole of yesterday, and that spike that did happen earlier today during the Asian session. So you can see that this one has also come down, just like we've seen on the others, bounced off this region right here. So what we'll be waiting for is, let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within there. If it does, then I'll be timing the sells somewhere higher up within this area. You can see that there's an SNR here that has really held the market. Maybe this market spiking to the upside possibly needed to stop out quite a number of guys. Consider there's also an SNR here. So maybe also based on that, some breakout traders, especially in Asia, once the market broke to the upside, they are definitely jumping in on some buying opportunities, not aware that this was some sort of a trap. And you can see that to some extent, we could say that the sellers have really showed up, considering the fact that you consider that push to the downside was quite aggressive. And if you look at how the buyers are struggling coming up, then there's a possibility this could have been the big boys and they're back in the game. So we definitely want to be getting ourselves higher up within here. So I'll be waiting to see if I can get the market as close as possible within this region. Then I'll be looking for the sells. Could keep the stops higher up within there, but also depending on what happens and the story of price within this region, maybe even could get the stops even tighter, to really get some proper risk to reward, so that on the first leg of this move coming down, get some proper risk to reward, then everything coming down will end up being a bonus. So I'll have to watch out for that. But let's see what happens. Patience is key. Remember, when it comes to trading, the best setups don't just show up. I know sometimes, especially guys that are new to trading, you think that anytime you open your MT5, setups are just going to be smiling at you. That's not how trading works. Patience is key. You will have to be very patient, and you need to have a proper game plan and a trading plan in terms of how you're going to be approaching the charts. So as long as you're following the plan, trading is actually very boring, like we like to say. If you're looking for a thrill, then don't really come and look for it on the charts. You're better off going to Las Vegas or to a casino or to a theme park. There's no thrill when it comes to trading. It's very boring. because waiting for the setups to actually end up happening can actually end up taking time. The only thrilling thing about trading is the money that you make, but the process extremely boring. So moving on into the next one. So this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this region right here. So we expected to see maybe some sort of a pullback, but the pullback was very quick and very shallow. But it seems like the market just stopped within this region and moved to the upside, and that was it. Next area was somewhere within here, and you can see that the market broke to the upside, pulled back in within there before it continued to move to the upside. But you can see that there was a bit of a struggle within there. So right now you can see that the sellers are fighting back, trying to attempt to push the market to the downside. Maybe the buyers do need a fresh pair of legs, which means that they need to invite the sellers to come in so that they can get re-energized to possibly end up continuing to push the market to the upside. So let's see what happens. There's a possibility the market could still come back into the downside within here, because if you look at how the buyers are going up, it seems like they're not really interested, but also maybe also based on the times. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But there's a high probability the market could tap back in within here, because this price is within here. If you look at how the buyer went up the previous time and what they're doing right now, this is pure mediocrity. So there's a possibility they might need, the buyers within this region to actually end up giving them a helping hand. So in case the market taps back in within here and comes back into the upside, if you look for that buy somewhere within here, you're much, much safer off. Right now, you could look for the buys, but you could easily end up getting stopped out because you're not too sure whether the market will come back in within these regions right here. So just be a bit patient, wait and see what happens. And of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market comes beneath that region to the downside, then there will be no trade for us. So the next Canadian dollar pair is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that I had pointed out. Unfortunately, there wasn't much of a pullback on this one. And I guess it's something that was happening on all the Canadian dollar pairs. I think there was too much weakness on them, apart from the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So you can see this one broke to the upside. Of course, we're expecting the pullback to come back in here for the buy. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can see that the market just continued to rally to the upside. The pullbacks were very shallow, and the market did continue to rally up. So today or yesterday, it found some area somewhere within here, and you can see that it's been held hostage within this region right here. Let's see if we can get some sort of a pullback coming in. So of course, watch out for this region. Right now, this is the ceiling that we have to watch out for. We want to get the trades. If we're going to be getting them lower than that level, we want to get them far away from that level, as far away as possible, maybe somewhere as close as possible within here. There's also a minor SNR somewhere within this region right here, especially considering the fact that, the Canadian dollar has been showing a lot of weakness. You might find that the pullback might not come in very deep, all the way to within here. So you could find that maybe even this price somewhere within here might be good enough. In case we do get the market getting stuck within this region, then I guess you could also watch out for that area, but also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. It's a bit of a long shot, but considering the fact that this move is also quite visible on the bigger time frame, you can find that maybe also the pullback could also end up being quite deep, also based on the bigger time frame. So in case that does happen, also just watch out for this region right here, because the big boys, they do love to fool around. I mean, they don't want us to make money, as the retail traders. In fact, they won't make money off of us guys. We're the ones who actually feed them. So when the market moves up like that, and definitely so many people are actually seeing that the market has moved to the upside, and the bias, of course, ends up being to the buy side, the big boys will definitely want to stop out a lot of people. So sometimes they will bring in the deep pullbacks and stop out a crazy amount of people, and of course, when they start now chasing the sales, that's when the buys do actually end up resuming. So that's the reason why we also have that region. In case they try to play that game, then at least we will be ready for that. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, trying to see whether we could get buys. More or less almost a similar situation with the rest of the cards. Price was somewhere within here. We did maybe expect to get the market coming back in within here for the buys. Fortunately, that didn't happen. You can see that the market broke to the upside. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the pullback coming in within this region. The breach was so strong And you can see that the buyers kept the momentum, going to the upside. So for this one for today, let's see if we'll be lucky. Right now, in terms of looking for the buys, be a bit patient. Yes, the market has broken to the upside to some extent of this region right here, but we need to see a bit more evidence that the market is actually holding above that region to the upside. Maybe a couple more candles, this being the 15-minute time frame. Maybe let's give it maybe till the London market open. A couple of candles, maybe like 3, 4 more candles. If we can get the market actually holding above here, then I guess at that point in time, we possibly could actually end up, attempting some buys within here, possibly pushing to the upside. Although that buy right there, also a bit of a risk, considering the fact that it's also quite obvious. Personally, I would prefer that the market does actually end up coming back into the downside, possibly start to incite some sellers to come into the market. If we do get the market coming back within this area, personally, I think the best buy would definitely be somewhere within here. This one's higher up within here to some extent. Always feels like you're chasing, after the market. You missed out on the buys when the market was moving higher and higher. And right now, when you're grabbing them somewhere within there, it feels like a bit of a chase. It's like, when you miss a matatu at a stage and you're running after it instead of waiting for the next one. It feels like that to some extent. But of course, we're just sharing what our plan is. You're in control of your finances. If for you the conservative entries work best, then make sure that you do stick to them, as best as possible. But of course, hopefully you always do watch out for your risk in everything that you do. So the next one is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is to some extent a new entrant on our watch list, although I know that it popped onto our watch list yesterday after the Swiss franc did actually end up switching. So for this one, we're going to be keeping up with the sells. So right now, the market is down within this area right here. Hopefully, let's see if we can get the buyers possibly coming in and maybe pushing the market just off this region, maybe as far away as possible as they can. Maybe somewhere within this area, if they can't get all the way to within there, at least looking for the sells here, you're much better off. But in case the market does break to the downside of this region, and hopefully we get a nice strong breach and a nice pullback that comes in, not like what we saw on the other cards where we just couldn't get the proper pullbacks coming in, then you could look for the sells, somewhere within this region right here, but also give this buyers the benefit of doubt, like I pointed out. You could find the market back in within here, maybe at around 430. You could get some good sells happening off there, or maybe even somewhere within there, if the buyers do actually end up getting some strength out of nowhere. So just make sure that you watch out for that. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we have the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. We'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So for this one, watch out for these 3 areas right here. Right now, you can see that the pullback has come in, although it's coming quite aggressive. So we will need to see these sellers slow down within this region right here. If you can't get some sort of a slowdown, maybe you could find that for them to slow down, the market might need to tap lower, maybe come into contact with those buyers right there. Maybe the buyers might push the market to the upside. Could be quite a number of attempts, within that area before the market does actually end up turning around to the upside. So we need to see this rollover phase. The markets don't just shoot down, shoot up. There's a certain protocol that they do actually end up following in terms of, a sequence of how they turn around. So hopefully if we get a proper sequence within here, then at least we can end up timing the buys. Because of course, if the market just taps within here, then goes to the upside, then in as much as we're expecting the market to bounce off that region, but in terms of looking for the entry, it could be hard because, it's not something that we can actually end up reading. So hopefully we get something we can read within this region right here. Of course, if the sellers don't show any signs of slowing down within this region, then it means that we could get the market coming all the way down to within this area right here. So also make sure that you do watch out for that region at the bottom, somewhere within that region right there. So if we end up going up a higher time frame, just to gain more context, you can see that we're in some sort of range, which means that at least if the sellers don't actually slow down within this area right here, then we could be coming down to the bottom of the range. And if you get the buys here, then you could target the top of the range, which is somewhere within here. So that will be quite a decent amount of pips. So we're looking at around 30 or thereabout. But of course, we'll also be waiting to see what happens within that area right there. So hopefully you've taken note of that. Of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no buys. In any case, if it breaks and holds beneath it, then there's a breach of structure. We're out of the range. So there's really no point looking for buys after that, unless the market does actually come back in into the range, then we could look for the buys. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs and what we're looking out for. For the guys who come in late, feel free to take note of that. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities, and you can see that there's really no change in terms of that. All of them are all for a buy. So we'll start with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, you can see the three levels that we're watching out for. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And I did point out that there was some sort of a minor scenario here. Even if you're a cowboy, you could have looked for the buys going up, but the proper buys possibly could have been somewhere within here. Can see that the market came back in within this area right here, but really struggled, to really pick up off this region right here. And you can see that the struggle is still going on, even moving into today. Remember, I also pointed out that in any case, if you get buys within here, you still need to watch out for this area to the downside, or when you're coming up, because when the market was holding within here, you could have looked for the buys. When it's holding beneath here, you can see that the market has really struggled within this area right here. So for this one, the game plan is more or less the same. Let's see what happens. Of course, if the market breaks above this region to the upside, then you could look for the buys here. So it's either this region right here, which ends up being the major level. And, if this region right here could give some issues, then we could get the market coming back in within here. The best buying opportunities are still within this region right here. So hopefully the buyers can come back in within this region and regroup. Hopefully they should be able to get some strength, to break free of this region to the upside. Because if they do end up coming back in, let's say if you get the buy within here, and the market really struggles to come up within this region, there's a high probability the market will not be able to breach this region to the upside, and you will need to do some money management, at that point in time. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But hopefully, in case the buyers do actually take up or take off from within this area quite aggressively, then hopefully we should be getting the market coming back in within this region quite well. So let's wait and see what happens within those two areas right there. And also watch out for the times. Remember that the indices and the commodities always tend to move a lot, especially during the US session. So could find that maybe there could be a struggle within here, maybe during the London session. If that happens and the market is back in within this region, maybe at around 3-4:30, then I guess at that point in time, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Could be a really good buy. So also watch out for this region at the bottom. Remember also for the indices and the commodities, we're always fully technical on them. So we follow the story of what price is telling us. Yes, the fundamentals could play a part here and there, but we do follow the story of what the charts are telling us. So for as long as we're holding above the red SNR to the upside, the buyers should be to look for those buying opportunities. So moving on into the US 30 or the Dow Jones. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was here. And I was expecting maybe we could have gotten the price just coming back in within here before we got the market moving to the upside. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. The market was just holding within this SNR right here, which you can see that the market did take off to the upside, went up higher, came back in. And you can see that the market did give some sort of another buying opportunity within here. This one was a bit much later on, but you can see that the market did push to the upside. And that's the reason why we always point out being patient is key. If you miss out on an opportunity, you can always wait. You can imagine all the guys who are chasing the buys when the market was moving to the upside, just because they didn't get the buys down here. All they needed to do was just be a bit patient, and the market did actually end up coming back in within there. And even if it doesn't come back in within that region, it's okay. You can always look for other opportunities elsewhere, or maybe wait until the next day. So for this one, these are the three areas that we'll be watching out for. Right now, the market is high up within this region. Let's wait and see if we can get a breach to the upside of this area. You can clearly see that this region has given issues the last 2 days. You can see the rejection that's been there, especially based on how the buyers went up and how they were shut down. It means that there's a big seller who's sitting there. The next time you can see that they're being held hostage within here. So we need to break free of this region to the upside before we look for buys. If not, then we'll just have to wait and see. You can get the pullback happening maybe during the London session. Then hopefully during the US session, we could get the buy possibly going up maybe from around 3-4:30. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. But remember the red SNR at the bottom. That's the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get buys. For as long as we're holding above that, then the bars should be to look for buying opportunities. And of course, if you do get any counters, you can jump in on them, but don't be overly ambitious in terms of how far you end up targeting, because generally the buyers, they're still in control. So moving on into the second last thing, which is silver. Now, for silver yesterday, the bar was to try and see whether we could get some buys. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. And you can see that in the morning price was somewhere within here. I did point out that we did need to see the market break above. If it does come back into the downside of this region right here, break to the upside and hold above it for us to look for the buying opportunities. You can see that the market broke and actually held to the downside of this region right here. And I think that's the reason why I think Bravin did actually end up jumping in on the sell. So shout out to you for that, Bravin, once again. But like I pointed out, you can see that in as much as his sell was a counter, fortunately, he couldn't go too far because generally the buyers are still in control. They will give you issues. So for this one, the levels are the same. So in as much as the market is holding within there, the buyers have not really showed up, but hopefully maybe they will end up showing up. The buyers should be that they will possibly end up showing up. Maybe this could be signs of them attempting to, possibly start to come up. Can't see that this push going up, the sellers really struggling, the buyers still coming up, the sellers back within some sort of region where they've reacted off before, but they're struggling. But in terms of location, in as much as that's happening within this area, it might not really be the best of locations for you to look for your buy, because when you look at the risk to reward that you can actually end up getting on this trade, it might not really be the best. You're better off either waiting for these buyers to really show up, if they're going to show up. Even if you don't get the buys within here, you can still get them within here. And that doesn't mean that you won't make money. So just need to be patient, because also these sellers can also react, and you could find the market maybe coming down all the way till within this region. And you could find that maybe another proper buy could possibly be hiding somewhere within here, especially if the buyers are not interested with these prices somewhere within here. So the game plan is more or less the same. Let's see what happens on that one. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, yesterday the bias was to try and see whether we could get buys. The bias is still the same moving into today. The levels also for this one are going to be exactly the same as what we did have yesterday. The market has not really moved off the regions that we had pointed out yesterday. So can't see that yesterday, even when we end up looking at what happened, in the morning price was somewhere within here. So it had broken to the upside of this area, but I did point out that we did need to see the market maybe come back in within here. I was expecting price to come back in within here. Then hopefully the buyers would have pushed the market to the upside and would have gotten a hold somewhere within this region. But unfortunately, we couldn't get that. And you can see that the market came to the downside once again. So it seemed that there was some sort of an SNR that the market was holding within this region right here. And you can see that the market was playing, some sort of a ping pong game between these two levels right here. Buys happening off here. Did need to manage your trade there, but you can see that at one point in time, the market did spike low, coming in somewhere within here, but this was quite a fast move. Could have been extremely hard, to actually end up getting that move. So moving into today, since the market is still contained within this region, maybe some sort of a range, considering that fact, that means that you shouldn't really be looking for the buys now. Hopefully, if the market breaks above this region to the upside, then we could potentially end up looking for the buys. So you can see that the buyers have stepped up within this region quite aggressively. There's no doubt that this is the big boy, but we definitely need to see a bit more within this region right here about what happens. You don't really want to be hitting your buying opportunities within a seller's region. That's not how trading works. You should be buying with buyers, selling with sellers. So for as long as we know that there are sellers here and they've not been taken out, even if the market struggles, hopefully we can also end up still getting the market coming down. So just give these sellers within here the benefit of doubt. At least if the market struggles down and still can't get down within here, I mean, even if it comes back in within this area right here, I'll definitely be looking to see whether I can get, some buying opportunities within this region, still within that minor SNR that I had pointed out. So you can see that the market broke to the upside. Could find that maybe it might actually pull back in within this region for some sort of a retest, because you can see that when it broke to the downside, retested off that region, came down. The fact that it's gone to the upside, you still could find the market coming back in within here. And at least getting a buy here, way better than getting the buy higher up within that region there. So just make sure that you take that or heed to that advice. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. Hopefully you guys have taken notes of everything we've discussed here and all the levels and what the game plan is going to be. Remember, if Like I was pointing out yesterday, some guys say that I speak too fast. In case I'm speaking too fast, you can't go on YouTube, you can't slow me down. But you can also end up, making me speak faster if you want to go through the webinar also quicker. The choice is yours, the power is in your hands. But also remember, when you're on YouTube, also make sure to like and subscribe. So on the Q&A section, I'm only seeing Alan Rono there saying, hi, John, thanks a lot. Good to see you, Alan. Always good to see you here. Karibu sana. Hope you're learning a lot and also improving in terms of your trading. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow, since I'm not seeing anything else. So just when I said that, I saw a question. So I'm seeing Anthony Jenga there. You're saying, hi, John. You're asking about oil. Unfortunately, we don't really look at oil anymore. However, I mean, if we can possibly end up doing a poll and you guys can give us, your 2 cents, because I mean, in as much as we're doing this based on the things that we're looking out for personally, and of course as the Afriforex team, but also this is also to give you guys value. So if you want us to look at oil, it's possibly something that we can factor in. But for right now, unfortunately, it's not something that's there. It's something that we used to have previously. Then people told us that they wanted the indices. We brought them there. But I mean, if you want us to bring oil back, I guess you can end up, we can take that into consideration, as well as maybe also other guys who also want us to bring oil back. Then we can't see what we can end up doing. So there's nothing that cast on stone. But for now, unfortunately, it's not really something that we're looking at. So I guess that's pretty much it. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the morning. So with that, happy trading. And may the pips be with you. Remember, trading is not easy, but if you withstand, you will stand. And may God give you the grace to actually withstand. So happy trading, guys. And bye for now. See you tomorrow. God bless.